Welcome to another little baking session. We're going to try something Welsh, and so some of my pronunciations might be a bit off because I don't speak Welsh. I've had a quick look. Some of these words I think I know how to say, but I apologise if I get it wrong. What we're going to make a cake. We're going to make a, now this is where it might get a bit iffy. I believe it's a Cacen Goch, which is a treacle cake. Although I do believe those words may translate as gingerbread, but this is a treacle cake. It's a traditional cake that comes from a place known as Bardsey Island, and I'll tell you a little bit about Bardsey Island as we go on. So for this you're going to want 300 grams of plain flour, 100 grams of softened butter, 180 grams of mixed dried fruit, 3 tablespoons of black treacle or molasses, depending where you come from, 80 grams of brown sugar, demerara sugar, a teaspoon of ground mixed spice, and 100 ml of milk. Now we want the oven preheated to 180, so that's on, and I've greased a cake tin. Now my cake tin is 20 centimetres. The recommendation is about 18, but it don't really matter, just be a bit thinner. Okay, and you might have noticed in that list of ingredients there's no sort of rising agent, so it won't rise an awful lot. Okay, so I've got my stuff weighed out, so let's get cracking. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sieve my flour into a bowl where I'm going to do all my mixing. Now the other thing you'll notice for a cake, it's got no eggs in it either. So we obviously, when it comes to cooking, it's not going to rise an awful lot. We need to keep an eye on it. We don't want to dry it out, but equally we obviously want to make sure it's cooked. Now, I say this is a traditional cake. I'm not really sure how old the recipe is, but Bardsey Island, I told you about Bardsey Island. Bardsey Island is famous. Bardsey Island, yeah, here we go. In Welsh, I don't know if it's Ynys Enlli, but I might be completely wrong with that one. Bardsey Island, stick with that. And actually on Bardsey Island, they call this cake we're making Tamad. Okay, so I've got that in there. So my next job is to rub the butter into that flour. So I'm going to get that chucked in there. Okay, like I say, we've got some mixed fruit, we've got some black treacle, I've got my demerara measured out, marked out, and I've got my teaspoon of ground mixed spice. So I'm going to rub the butter in, and we want to get it sort of like a breadcrumby texture. So while I finish off crumbing this together, I'll tell you a little bit more. Bardsey Island is also known as the island of the 20,000 saints. Okay, it's only a couple of miles off the coast, but on a clear day apparently you can see it all the way down the coast as far as Aberystwyth. Now the Welsh name for it means the island of currants, not currants like we're going to be putting in here, but the English name of it, or version of it, refers to the island of Bards. Now traditionally it's the burial place of King Arthur and Merlin. He's wizard or magician. Okay, but today it's famous more for its rare sea life and seabirds that you can go and see. Okay, and also there's loads and loads of grey seals there apparently, and a lot of local legends refer to those grey seals. I don't know any of the legends. Alright, so I've just about got this all breadcrumby, so I'm just going to get washed up, because the next stage is we'll just use a wooden spoon. In goes my dried fruit and my sugar and my allspice. And now all we're going to do is we're just going to mix all these together, okay, until we're in a position to start adding the remaining 2 ingredients. I've got the milk out now. Now we might not need all 100 mils, okay? We don't want this really wet, we want it quite a little bit sticky, but not sort of too runny. So that's got that in. So now I'm going to attempt to add is 3 tablespoons of this black treacle. Love this stuff. I think I've mentioned this stuff before in a different recipe. I remember as a kid I used to have this. I know a lot of people don't like it. I used to like it. So this can take a little while. So I've mixed that in as best I can. So what we're now going to do is just start adding some of that milk. I suspect most of it will end up going in there. Okay, and gradually mix that in until, like I say, we've got a nice wet mixture, but not too wet. Okay. So remember, I've got my oven on, getting up to temperature at 180. Now you'll know when it's wet enough, because we should be able to pour it as such. Okay, and obviously that's not quite there yet. And I've got a glazed cake tin. Now traditionally this is a sort of cake that would be served for tea, your afternoon tea, with tea or coffee. Okay, if you have it warm with a dollop of whipped cream on top, or you just have it on its own, or you could have it on its own but with, say, a little bit of, say, apple preserve. Never had apple preserve. Right, I ain't got any cream in the house, so unless it's for a recipe, my wife won't have it on a diet. Okay, probably about 3 million sins in Slimming World, but there you go. So I think I'm almost there, so I'll add a little bit more milk, and I'm just going to get that finally all mixed in. Right, so actually I added a little dollop more of milk. You want to get it so, like I say, it's not too wet, but it is actually easier to stir it to make sure it's all mixed in. So now there's my pan, and all I'm going to do now is we're now just going to tip that into the pan. Now if you've got quite a shallow pan, you don't have to worry, because like we said, there's no baking powder or yeast or anything like that in there, so it's obviously not going to rise, or certainly not going to rise much. So if you've got a shallow pan, don't be frightened to completely fill it almost. Okay, it's not going to overflow too much. So I just want to get the remainder of this out into that cake tin. So there it is in my tin. So that's going to go in the oven for about 45 minutes. We'll check it with a skewer, and once it comes out clean and hot, we know it's cooked, and then we'll bring it out and let it cool for 10 minutes before we can transfer it onto a cooling rack. So I'll catch you when it comes out of the oven. So I've had 40 minutes. Remember, this is a bit thinner because it's a slightly bigger cake tin than I said, and it does appear that that is now cooked. So we're just going to let that cool for 10 minutes, and then we'll get it out of the pan and onto here to cool, and then we'll sample it, because it should be better slightly warm. So catch you when it's tasting time. So there we go, that's 10 minutes later. I've still got to get it off the base, but I just wanted to get a slice cut. Okay, so there you go, there's our cake. It's still quite warm. I nicked one of the bits of fruit come out. So let's give it a go. Welsh treacle cake. Fruit's very hot. You get that black treacle, but not by any means overpowering. If you don't like black treacle, it won't make any difference to you. Be interested to see what it's like when it's cold. Okay, because at the moment, being so warm, it's quite moist. I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's not going to be moist when it's cold, but it's like a little bit more sort of texture-wise moist in that. But just very reminiscent of a typical like fruit cake. I was going to say like Christmas cake, but normally Christmas cake you've got a bit of alcohol in it. You know, with any of this. It's sweet, but not overpoweringly so. Very nice. So there you go. That is your Cacen Goch, if that's right. Your Welsh treacle cake. Enjoy. I am.